Recording.
Good morning, everyone. We studied this week the portion of Emor, and I'm sharing with you the Rebbe's talk from selections of Likutei Sichos, Emor, the second talk. I'm sharing you a summary, and I'm omitting many details the Rebbe is answering and explaining because I want the flow to go very easy in a short period of time. The Torah in this week enumerates all of the holidays, beginning with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, and all the sacrifices, the service in the temple. In between, the Torah is talking about the gifts to the poor, La'ani ve'lager ta'azov oisom, shleket shichecha and peah, the corner of the field, whatever you have forgotten on the field, heaps that you forgot on the field, and also if one or two stalks fell on the ground, you're not allowed to pick them up. And there are other gifts. One of the commandments God gave us is in chapter 23, verse 15. Uspartem lochem mimachras haShabbos. Count to yourself from the day after Shabbat, from the day you bring the Omer Korban sacrifice, for how long? 7 weeks. And until after the 7 weeks, you must count every day. And this is the mitzvah of counting of the Omer, Sfirata Omer. Every night we count the Omer for 49 days. The 50th day is the holiday of Shavuot. Uspartem lachem, to yourself, I shared with you many times, the holiday of Shavuot will fall in after counting 49 days for every individual. So someone who crossed the date line and is 1 day behind the community in Australia, because they are 13 hours ahead, he will celebrate Shavuot a day later. It's the only holiday that is tailored to the individual's counting of 49 days. So if someone is coming back from Australia, my daughter studied in seminary in Australia, she signed up before she was accepted that if she comes home for Passover, when she returns, she'll travel to Europe and not to California and Hawaii, I think, because otherwise she will be crossing the dateline, and it will create a challenge about the holiday of Shavuot. The Gemara in Menachot, and this is the topic of our discussion, brings a dispute between the sages and the Baitusim. The Baitusim are named after a leader of theirs by name of Baitus, who rejected the oral tradition. They interpreted the Torah verbatim, the way it's written. The Torah says, Usfartem lachem, count to yourself, when? Mimacharat HaShabbat, from the day after Shabbat. The rabbis explain Shabbat here is referred to Passover, after Passover. So when do we start counting the Omer? The second night of Passover, the second day of Passover. But the Baitusim said you have to count after Shabbat Bereshit, the first Shabbat. The Torah says Mimachras HaShabbos. Macharat means the day after. From the day after what? Shabbat. It doesn't have Mimacharat HaPesach. As the Rebbe and the rabbis, the sages proved them wrong on many levels, but they wouldn't change because they needed to stick only to the text and not to the tradition of explaining the text. Ask the Rebbe, if the Torah wants us to count the day after Passover, why did God have to say Mimacharat HaShabbat? Why don't you make life easy? Mimacharat HaPesach, there will be no dispute. In addition, many other Jews, at the time they were Jewish people, they would not dispute the rabbis and follow the rules the way God intended it to be. Why does the Torah need to tell us it's Mimacharat HaShabbat? Shabbat, we all know, is the Sabbath, and the rabbis explain God meant after Passover. Says the Rebbe, if we look at this season of Passover and Shavuot, there are 7 weeks in between. It includes how many months? 3 months. The 15th of Nisan is the Exodus, the entire month of Iyar, And the first 6 days of Sivan, that's when God gave us the Torah, on the 6th of Sivan. All three are mentioned in the Torah in connection to the Exodus from Egypt. B'chodesh Harishon, people came, the first month of Passover, Nisan, the Torah calls it the month of Exodus from Egypt. The second month, Iyar, the Torah calls it the second month since they left Egypt. And the third month, when they came to Mount Sinai, and the first of the month, it says it was the third of the Exodus from Egypt. No other month is mentioned in the Torah in connection to the Exodus. In other words, you have other months. Things happen on Sivan and Av. The first of Av, Aaron died. You have an Adar, Moshe died. You have no mention of the month in connection to Exodus from Egypt or coming out of Egypt except those three. Must be that all three are one project, and that is live in Egypt. The first month is talking about the actual live in Egypt, the 15. The second month is actual preparation of the giving of the Torah. And the third month is the actual giving of the Torah. All of them are one project, live Egypt. Why do we leave Egypt? To receive the Torah. And therefore we have to prepare for receiving of the Torah. So we have the month in the middle, sandwiched, the month of Iyar. Did you understand so far? So again, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, all 3 months are all about Exodus from Egypt. It's one project because it starts with the physical Exodus from boundaries of a country, and it concludes when we became the people of God, having a covenant on Mount Sinai on the 6th of Sivan. Says the Rebbe, there is something else about those 3 months. And the month of Nisan, it is connected to matzah, right? Because when they had to bake matzah, and now for 7 days during the month of Nisan, no eating matzah. Is that clear? No eating chometz, only matzah. And the month of Iyar, it's connected to the Omer. Anybody? The counting of the Omer.
So what does Omer mean?
What does Omer means?
Measure. It's a portion?
An Omer is a measure. Like in coins, I was thinking today to bring it down. Like in coins today, you have a nickel, you have a quarter, you have a dime. What is a quarter? A quarter is a coin that values 25 cents. So Omer is a measure. It's a measurement.
Okay.
I don't know how much. It's a kilo and a quarter maybe. So it's about between 4 and 5 pounds. It had to be brought to the temple, a Omer with barley grain.
Okay.
Steorim. With barley.
Okay.
And they would work on it, sift it through to make sure it was fine.
They have to sift and make flour out of it, but it had to have come from barley, which is very unusual. We'll deal with in a moment. And the third month, on Shavuot, during the holiday, there was a korban, there was a sacrifice called Shtei Alechem, the 2 breads. Those breads had to be chametz. Chametz, it's in this week's Torah portion. Chametz te'afena, they must be made chametz, meaning leavened. So you have 3 types of grain that is used as sacrifices during those 3 months. In Nisan, it has to be unleavened matzah. In Iyar, it cannot be wheat as usual, the flour that was used as a sacrifice. This is an exception. It has to be from barley. And the month of Shavuot, it must be chametz te'afena. It must be leavened, the opposite of Passover. Says Rabbi, I don't understand. Barley is yes. Barley is an inferior type of grain. It's called animal fodder. It's for animals, not for man. Today we have, but the usual ordinary way is only wheat, not barley. Yet during the month of Iyar, they had to have this Omer, offerings which are made out of barley. The only time you bring barley as a flour sacrifice is for soito, is for a woman that was hidden, and when the process takes place in the temple to prove whether she sinned or not, she brings a handful of barley flour. But other than that, there is no time you bring barley. Especially here, the Omer is a public sacrifice. It's for the
So
community.
they're giving an Omer of barley every day as a sacrifice?
No, one time. The second day of Passover, and that's when you start counting.
What you're counting?
What do you
Aren't
count?
supposed to deliver Omer every day?
I don't
And the
think so.
count?
No, only one time on the second
So what
day
is
of
the
Passover.
count then? The count,
The
why
count-
when
God says count until
days.
7
Count
weeks.
the measure, so it doesn't.
No, not the measures, the
It's
days.
just it gets attributed to Omer.
Okay, let me explain. On Passover, when we left Egypt, we had to have matzah. No leavened, only unleavened. The second day of Passover, they had to bring barley, omer of barley,
Isn't barley
and
flits?
that denotes the beginning of the counting of 7 weeks.
But isn't barley
We
flits?
call it Sfiras Omer because that's when you brought from the Omer was brought, you count 7 weeks. No, it's not. Why it should be chametz?
No.
You grind it. You don't make a dough out of it. You take the barley, you grind it and make it a very, very fine flour, and you pour it on the altar. That's it. Huh?
Kidney.
What?
It's kidney, isn't it?
Barley is kidneyot? No. Why barley is kidneyot?
Barley.
Soon you're going to tell me wheat is kidneyot too, so no matzah and Pesach.
No.
Kidneyot is legumes. It's something that grows in the ground that is forbidden. That includes
Cheese,
peas, corn,
rice.
rice is a good example.
Aren't there 5 species that are chametz for Pesach?
If they were, of course, 5 species, and one of them is barley. If they'll mix with water and remain for more than 18 minutes, that's when they'll rise.
So you could technically make matzah out of barley.
Of course, just like you can make matzah out of wheat.
Okay.
What's the question
I
even?
don't know.
So in the temple they brought minchas omer, korban omer, and therefore from that moment, from that day, they count for 7 weeks, 49 days, and then they'll celebrate Shabbat.
So they attribute it to Omer.
Says the Rebbe, let's go back to our discussion here. At Passover, the bread that you connected with is only matzah, unleavened. ER is connected to Omer. Omer had to be barley. Says Rebbe, why barley? Barley is very unusual. It's the exception. There is no other public sacrifice, public offering that can be bought from barley. And it doesn't make sense to bring barley because barley is an inferior type of grain. On Shavuot, God instructed that there must be leavened, chametz te'afena, exactly the opposite of Pesach. It has to rise, and only then you can use it. And you bake it, you make cakes out of it. Ask the Rebbe, why is it? And more importantly, why barley, the middle one? So for that, the Rebbe goes on to explaining the different stages of the Jewish people between Passover, the month of Iyar, and Shavuot. And it goes very beautifully in a verse in Shir Ashirim, in Song of Songs, where the King Solomon says, Moshcheni, pull me, acharecha narutza, we will follow and run after you, eviani amelech chadarav, and the king brought me, or the husband brings me to his private chamber. This is the verse. Anybody heard that? Huh? You heard. People who have tradition, they follow the tradition, have heard that. There are many details into it, singular, plural, and pull me and I'm running after you. There is much more to it than I'm sharing, but I'm going to give you the gist of it. Says the Rebbe that the human being comprises of a godly soul and animal soul. What's the difference between godly and animal, a human and an animal first? A human being, their emotions are not as strong as animals because the emotions are controlled by the brains. Animals' brains cannot control their emotions. Did you understand that? So when an animal is angry, or an animal is happy, it goes all the way 100%, because there is no control center that can weaken. But a human being, when I'm angry, the mind can calm me down. When I'm extremely happy, the mind can control and not allow me to express my happiness to its fullest. That's the difference between an animal and God and a human in this case. Says the Rebbe, when the Jewish people commanded by God to serve God with both souls, with both souls, the benefit of the animal soul is not just converting the animal souls to serve God, but it gives the godly soul a gift that the godly soul does not possess. The godly soul on its own serves God because it yearns to God and wants to, but it's tamed. It's like trained to slow down, to not express fully, not be there 100%. Comes the animal soul. If you convince the animal soul that God is good because it's going to give you a lot of gifts and going to make you happy, when the animal soul is involved in serving God, it makes the godly. When the animal soul is involved in serving God, it does it with such fervor and such strength that it gives new energy to the godly soul. Did you understand that, Harry? Okay. So again, a godly soul naturally wants to serve God, but the way a godly soul, like a human, is very tamed. So it's not fully 100% into it. When you take an animal soul and you tell the animal soul how great God is and it's time to serve God, and the animal soul is convinced and changed, the way a person will serve God is not just, again, without any challenges of the animal soul, but even his godly soul will be affected by the animal soul, because now the animal soul has no boundaries, has no limitations, has no control of the mind that is going to stop and slow it down. So the strength is much more powerful, much closer to God in a much greater way. Says the Rebbe, when the Jewish people came out of Egypt, they were only their godly soul was being pulled. The animal soul wanted to remain in Egypt. That's why it says that the people ran away. Ki borachahom. And that's why the Alter Rebbe explains that when Moshe tells Pharaoh, we want to leave Egypt, he didn't say we want to live forever. He says we want to live for 3 days and we'll come back after 3 days. Everybody's asking the question, Moshe anyway forced Pharaoh to release the Jewish people. Why didn't he tell him, Pharaoh, the truth? We're going forever, we'll never come back. And the Kabbalah explains that he was speaking for the Jewish people. If he would tell the Jewish people that they are living forever, they would refuse. But when he told them, we're going on vacation, we're taking a trip, we're going on a cruise and we'll be back home, no worries, they accepted it. As we know, 7 days later, they wanted to go back. So the animal soul was in full strength. The only soul that wanted to leave Egypt and to connect to God was the godly soul. That's why in the verse of Song of Songs, Moshcheni, singular, because the yearning to connect to God and the holiday, or the month of Nisan, the holiday of Pesach, is referring only to the godly soul, not the animal soul. Comes the month of Iyar, an entire month that God says, let's prepare the animal soul to also be connected to God. And that's why you bring in a what kind of flour? Animal fodder, serim, because you are intending to convert the animal soul, not the godly soul. And therefore, the animal soul don't eat wheat. You give it to it, they will have a stomachache, they'll have diarrhea. They wouldn't be able to connect with you. The barley is the one they can consume. That's why you go on with the barley. Only,
Far out.
Why?
It's amazing when you think about it, because you don't think about these things.
Let's continue. We didn't even finish. We had a question. Why it's called Mimachorat Shabbat? We didn't address the question. Hold on. By the way, I'm giving you a gist of the Rebbe's talk, because the Rebbe is going through the verse of Song of Songs that Harry is familiar with, and he's dissecting every one of it. Every one of the words. Says the Rebbe, just a minute, when you take the animal soul and you make it connect to God, serving God, Now, it's not just that you have two engines, you know, you have a car with dual engines. It's not dual engines. It's a new turbo engine that's far superior to the other engine. As I said, that the godly soul is always tamed and controlled by the mind. Animal soul have no mind. God created animals' emotions. So when you get the animal soul, you go way, way faster. It's like riding a bike or driving a sports car. You're not going to compare. There's no comparison. It's not adding another wheel to the bike. It's putting an engine of a car. Now you're going to drive 80 miles an hour. That's the month of Iyar. That's why you need a full month for it. Because you're going to take it, or it's 7 weeks actually. Every day, one part of the animal soul have to be repaired and corrected. Now comes the giving of the Torah. You are standing on the foot of Mount Sinai to make a covenant with God. Now you have both souls. Says the Rebbe, that's why it must be leavened. You know what leavened is? Haughtiness. It represents haughtiness. It represents arrogance. Says the Rebbe, but once you have both souls connected to God, you need to have arrogance. You need to use arrogance for serving of God. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my tradition. I am very special that I connected to God. Now, says the Rebbe, you cannot bring matzah and Shavuot, but it must be chametz. At the time they leave Egypt, there is no animal soul, there is only godly soul. Haughtiness, arrogant is a forbidden activity, and therefore it has to be unleavened. Nothing to eyes representing haughtiness. Shavuot, after you went through the 7 weeks of not crushing, but turning it back to be part of my service of God, now you are way, way superior to the way where you were when you left Egypt. And therefore God says, I want it to be chametz, I want it to be a very special rising bread, because now you got to take out the covenant and make it a very proud part of your life. So far, so good? Harry, so far, so good?
Where's Mecharis?
Says the Rebbe, that's why you need, God says, to count the Omer, or to bring the Omer, the animal, the converting of the animal soul, mimacharat Shabbat, from the day after Shabbat. Because in order for you to convince the animal soul to go out of its natural tendency and become godly, you need a special help from above. We call it lemaila mimedida ve'agbala. Above all the chain react, all the ishtalshelus, all of the order of creation. In other words, let me explain. What is Shabbat? Shabbat is a time, we call it an extra soul, right? You heard that on Shabbat you have an extra soul. That's why,
Yes.
That's why you say Al Tira Avdi Yaakov Saturday night. That's why you do Avdallah. Anybody who's been to JLI, yesterday we spoke about Avdallah. What do you start Avdallah with? Inei kelishi evtach velo efchad. I don't fear. Fear of what? Don't fear of breaking tire. Fear of the animal soul, because until now I'm protected by God. I have an extra soul. Shabbat is above nature. Shabbat is miracle. Shabbat is directly connected with God. Says the Rebbe, God needed to make sure that you know that He is going to connect with you and assist you in getting the animal soul to become part, to conquer the animal soul and make it part of the service of God. Therefore, He had to write Mimochas Shabbos from the day after Shabbat, because what will if you're on your own, you'll never be able to successfully get the animal soul to serve God and to do what's right. But when you are told God is going to be with you, and it will happen because God will help anybody who's doing the right thing, that's when it will happen. The lesson I take, many times the Torah tells us, gives a certain restriction. I'm going to use an example that I'm grappling with. Do not take revenge. It's very difficult to not take revenge. Someone who punched you in the face, someone who is publicly humiliated you, etc. And the Torah says, when you see him next time, and you have the ability to take revenge, you can do the same. And you really, really strongly want. The Gemara said, the Medrash tells us that the pleasure of revenge is 1/60th of the pleasure of heaven. In other words, the pleasure of getting revenge from somebody is greater pleasure than any other pleasures available in the world. The Medrash goes on to say that a person is willing to lose pleasure for the sake of seeing revenge from someone who hurt him. And you ask yourself, how will I be able to keep that commandment? How will I be able not to bear grudges? So let's say I'm not going to take revenge. How will I be able to rid myself of those feelings? And you have to turn to God and say, God, that's what you asked me. I need your help. Because on my own, it's impossible. But when you know that God will be there to assist you, it enables you to follow God's commandments. And I think that's the message of Mimacharat Shabbat. The goal is to take an animal and convince it to serve God. It's a very challenging conduct. But when you know that the start is Mimacharat, the day after Shabbat, meaning God is going to bring you the energy you need and the power and the ability, then you're certain that you will be able to succeed. And that concludes our lesson today.